Hi again then guys, and it's finally here. Part 10 of my overall review of the Gran Turismo Sport beta. As I've said before, I only like to make these large review portions for distinct aspects of the game when it really feels like there's a need for it. So, for the last update I didn't cover it really, because there weren't huge changes made. This one though is a much more significant subject, and although the changes aren't necessarily massive, they are still a step, I would say at least, in the right direction. Now, to be clear, I'm not an apologist for polyphony or for Gran Turismo Sport. There are things about this game, some of which I've talked about before in my Beards and Cars Candid Talk episodes, that I'm not happy with. But that's not the purpose of this episode. The purpose of this episode is just to inform you guys of what the changes are. And this particular one is, as I said, a very popular one. Not in terms of already being implemented, but something which people are asking for a lot. I would say almost as much as having better car sounds, and that is damage. Now, Gran Turismo has dabbled with damage in the past, in particular on Gran Turismo 5, but it's never been that great. So, this new update, the 1.08, is at least a step towards addressing that. Now, Polyphony have said, included in the notes of the update itself, that this is predominantly geared at the moment towards the online racing aspect, rather than the solo portions of the game, most of which we don't have access to yet anyway, and that it brings damage to the game, and also penalties associated with smashing into other cars online. Now, that kind of stuff we've already had implemented with the driver ratings, but this makes it a little bit more direct as to causing disruptions in races and getting penalties for it. And as you can see in this video, and as you will see, I get a couple of penalties myself. But of course, the purpose of the race isn't really to win. I didn't really care about that. It was just to see how these changes worked online. Now, the question is, how do they work? Well, as you could see from the start of this video, the damage itself is both an improvement, but at the same time definitely not what we want yet. Because there's a big difference between mechanical damage and cosmetic damage. And when people say, and of course I'm generalizing here, but when most people say, I want more damage on Gran Turismo, they don't mean mechanical damage. Because at the end of the day, we already have stuff like fuel use, tyre wear, that kind of thing. When people say that they want more damage, it tends to mean visual damage. Smashing off bumpers, breaking lights, breaking windows. That is the obvious thing to want more of. So, does it improve that? Well, kind of. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The damage isn't great. The best that you've got is basically a couple of small dents on the vehicles with mostly paint scraping. That's really the major extent of the damage. Is that an improvement? Yes. Is it good enough? No, not even close. Now, with that being said, that is the cosmetic side, but what about the mechanical side? Well, that's where the biggest change has been made. And of course, by definition of this being a beta review, things can change all the time, so who's to say that it may not be updated again down the line? I certainly hope so. But the purpose of this is to review it as I see it right now. And right now, the biggest improvement is in the mechanical side of the damage. The car starts to limp along. Again, as you could see in this video, when you take damage, you can feel it. The suspension feels out of whack. The wheels feel out of alignment, as they should. Tyre wear is more noticeable. I also had the opportunity to drive solo with an Aston Martin Vantage GT3 car on an oval circuit, and I could feel the tyre wear. The car was pulling towards the left, even without damage, because I'd burned up the tyres a little bit. That's cool. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see. Mechanically, it definitely has a strong effect on the car. It slows it right down, as you could see again from this video. Causes the car to essentially limp back to the pits. You're still driving it, of course, but you need to pit in if you want any chance of continuing at a good pace. And that really seems to be the main focus of this update, because the update was much smaller than some of the past ones have been. They've been around 10, 12, even more gig. This one was 80 megabytes, or around 84, I believe it was. So much, much smaller, and I have no doubt that they're going to try and improve this aspect of the game even more, because there'd really be no point in doing this if you're not going to take it further. Well, hopefully, at least. That being said, for now, I would say this is a step in the right direction. It certainly would dissuade people from just trolling online and smashing into cars, especially when you factor it in with the penalty system. And that's good. That's a good thing. The kind of people who are going to be playing this game are going to be more people who just want authentic racing. Of course, you will always have trolls in there, but by the definition of the purpose of the game, the percentage of professionals to trolls, or the ratio between them, will be more favourable in favour of professionals, because trolls aren't going to buy a game like this as much because they know that kind of stuff is implemented. That's a good thing for those who want that. It does mean, of course, that you'll have less lobbies about just having fun, unless, of course, you can turn the damage off, but that's another conversation entirely. For now, I'd say this is definitely a step in the right direction, but as with most things, when they're new to a franchise, or predominantly new, there are certainly more of a ways to go for it to be perfect, and definitely there's a long ways to go for it to be actually delivering what the community wants, which is authentic looking visual damage. Overall, it's an interesting update. As I said, certainly a step in the right direction, and if this is your first visit to the channel, of course, by the nature of it being episode 10, there's plenty more in this series to check out, covering the physics, the car sounds, the overall look at the game, tuning, online racing, new cars, new tracks, all that kind of good stuff. And of course, to keep up with more Gran Turismo Sport content, not just in this form, but also individual car reviews and also comparing cars to each other in competitive rivals matches, then check out more on the channel. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.